So you're probably wondering why I decided to quit being a manager. After all, isn't that what everyone wants? They want to take charge, they want to be in control, they want to inspire a team. Well, it turned out to not be what I wanted, and let me talk to you about that. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Victoria. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, and content creator, and on my channel I provide tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you be successful in a medical coding career. If you haven't already, highly encourage you to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can get alerts when I post new episodes. I guess I should start first with how I got into a management role in medical coding. I guess my official title was Supervisor of Professional Fee Coding. I was very career motivated. I started out in charge entry, I worked up to billing, and then I went into being a coder 1, I think, and then I transferred to a different organization as a senior coding specialist, which kind of had the intent to eventually, I guess, become a supervisory role. As the senior coder, I was more so responsible for projects and not so much people, but then eventually I switched over to the people management because there was a need for that. I don't have an associate's degree. I literally just have my college certificate of completion and my coding credentials. So the way that I built myself up to get to that point was I was getting multiple credentials. I was writing articles for Healthcare Business Monthly. I was involved in various volunteer leadership opportunities through the local chapters, as well as speaking at seminars on local and national levels. So when you can demonstrate that you're doing above and beyond your job role, it shows that you're motivated. It shows that you're someone who wants to be ambitious, that you're wanting to help others, possibly lead others. When you get to that point where you've built up in your career and now someone's recognizing it and they're like, we're going to put you in charge because we see something in you. It's like exciting. There's this new and shininess and you feel awesome. You feel like, hey, I've accomplished something awesome. You know, I'm getting this acknowledgement. I'm getting a pay increase. I'm getting this cool job title. Like you feel like, oh, I'm getting, you know, sometimes my own office. That's a huge thing. Like when you get your own private office in the central billing office, it's super, super exciting, but that new and shininess of it can fade pretty quickly. So this really isn't exclusive to medical coding. It's really in any industry in the United States. In the United States, our expectations of management and management roles and leadership roles are unreal. All of a sudden you've been working with these people for a long time and they're like, oh, well, you're the manager now. So they expect like the switch to just flick over and you know everything. And in our industry, it's tough because suddenly people want you to know everything about every different medical specialty, every different medical insurance, their coverages. They want you to just know it because you are in charge. And if you don't know it, they expect you to be able to relay an answer ASAP. And not even just the technical knowledge, like they expect you to suddenly be this master of human resource knowledge and things like conflict management. And since you're in charge, you're a big, easy target if anything goes wrong. It's easy if something is frustrating or difficult in an organization to just go ahead and blame management and say, oh, well, you know, it's because my supervisor. Oh, I can't have this day off because of my supervisor. You know, it's not because I ran out of all of my PTO and then got sick. It's because, you know, management sucks. And I'm not trying to scare anyone or discourage anyone from getting into a leadership role. I really just want to talk about why it didn't work out for me and some things that some people don't consider when they want to get into management. There's honestly a lot of little nuanced things that people don't even consider. Like I had employees working under me that made more money than I did as my manager, and it was frustrating, but that wasn't the bulk of the frustration. For me specifically, I really hated being in meetings all of the time and just feeling like that was the bulk of what I was doing. I was either in meetings with other leadership, or I was in meetings with my staff doing one-on-ones, or meeting with my boss, or I had to sit on, you know, practice manager meetings. So it was just meeting after meeting after meeting and not getting a lot of actual work done. And then I'd come out of the meeting with different tasks that I needed to accomplish and little to no time before the next meeting. And as a creative type, someone who likes to be working on projects and accomplishing things, it's really frustrating when I'm not feeling like I've done anything, or I'm not feeling like I've created anything, I've made anything, and I'm just sitting in meetings and chit-chatting. I would join in on things like the annual flu shot committee, even though really my contribution to the flu shot committee was literally to go, these are the codes for this year and this is how we bill it. Like, I didn't feel like I was contributing much, and it just seemed like such a inappropriate use of my time. So oftentimes, because I spent so much time in meetings and still had these tasks to accomplish, I was working way more than 40 hours. And the tough thing about management is sometimes you wind up in these situations with other leadership where it's almost like a pissing contest to see who is the most overworked. So if I was like, oh my gosh, I worked 50 hours this week, someone else would be like, oh, I wish I only worked 50 hours because I put in 60 this week. And it seemed like, and I hear this a lot from other people in other organizations, it seemed like no matter how much work you have to do, no matter how many hours you're putting in, if you feel like genuinely you have too much work, it's never like, oh, you have too much work. It's that you have time management problems. And with the way my brain is programmed, I needed to do things like batch my work. I needed to not multitask, not do multiple things at the same time. I needed things very structured. I needed to group things together. I can't task toggle very well. I can't go from, taking a phone call from someone asking a coding question and then go right back to an email that I was working on. Like, that transition between my brain takes some time. So it was very difficult for me because I was basically put in a corner where I was told, no, you're not allowed to batch your work. You can't do it this way. We're in this lean management program and you have to do the same thing that everyone else is doing because we've decided that that's what works for everyone. And there's nothing wrong with lean management. I have been reading up on lean management in healthcare since I basically became a coder. It's something that I feel very great about, but I think it's very difficult when it is being forced upon you in a extraordinarily structured way. I love the principles, but when it's like you have to do X amount of this and, accomplish X amount of ideas executed in X amount of time, it's kind of like forcing a crap when you don't have to go. So really, I didn't feel like I had the amount of control that I thought I was going to. And I guess maybe that's because I was in more so middle management. I don't know. But, you think that when you're in this leadership role and you're in charge of this team, and my team, I think sometimes was upwards of 30 people from, our entry-level coding positions, our middle tier coders, and then our auditors, educators, and then eventually just sort of transitioned to a team of about a dozen auditors, educators. As we grew, it would sometimes be 30 people, and then as we wheeled it down, I just managed the high-level coder educators. But there were things that I wanted to do that I just felt like, and I at the time was micromanaged. So again, it might be very different in other organizations, but I personally was micromanaged. But because of that, and because of being in a very large organizations, I sometimes wasn't allowed to hire the people I wanted to because maybe they didn't hit a mark for HR. I didn't have a lot of control over who I was allowed to give what raises because of the budget that wasn't approved by me. So I sometimes couldn't give my staff resources that they needed, like they were often asking for a CCI edit checker. And I know that there was software that I could get them subscribed to and they could check their CCI edits in no time. But we were told, there's a free resource. You can go on the CMS website and get it for free, so we're not going to pay for that. And it was things like that, and my auditors were like, I don't want to say cherry picking cases, but we didn't have like a rat stat software where you can run through and automatically kind of select cases. They would just go, okay, well, we're going to audit this one, and I don't know, this one looks good, and this one looks good on the spreadsheet, so these are the ones we're going to pick. And then every decision I made had to be eventually rationalized. So it wasn't just like I got to make the decision. It was like, I'm going to make this decision, but then I also need to come up with the entire rationale of why I'm making this decision so that when I meet with my boss, I can explain to her why I let someone take the day off. Mentally, it was just so exhausting for me. And because of that and just a lot of other things going on, I basically worked myself to the point that I did have a nervous breakdown. Getting to a point where your staff is coming into your kind of corner, I didn't even have a closed door office. It was just kind of a corner of the office. But when they're coming over and saying things like, hey, Victoria, I see the way that you're being treated and it's not okay. Like that's a tough situation to be in. But what I really, really did like about management was I loved working with the high-level staff. I loved getting to meet with the executive physicians that were in charge of things like information technology or clinical care. I loved meeting with the practice managers and the front-end supervisors and presenting at the meetings and giving information. I loved doing education for my team. I loved learning. I liked going to the workshops where I learned more about my emotional intelligence and that kind of thing. But yeah, I just don't think the juice was worth the squeeze. And like I said, I was a creative type, so I didn't like spending all of this time in meetings and not actually creating. So I actually moved on from that position and took an auditor educator role where I was working more hands-on with physicians and fixing some of the, I guess, coding or maybe even revenue cycle issues that were going on. And eventually I got to ease myself back into doing more creative work, doing more webinars, doing more article writing, presenting more. And that's when I started my YouTube channel and everything picked up from there. So yeah, now I just do a lot of medical coding content creation and then a little bit of side work to keep my skills up to snuff. So management is not for everyone, especially for someone like me who's not particularly organized. Maybe you're someone who's very like on your feet, very organized, and you can have a great payoff from that. Some people love leading a team and inspiring others, so that can make the long hours worth it. But if management is not your thing, that's okay too. There's lots of other ways you can grow in the medical coding industry without getting into a situation where you are managing people. And you can always follow me for more tips on some amazing things you can do with your career. I will see you guys in the next video, and until then, just keep on coding on.